So we're going to go ahead and talk about the issue of immigration with my mother-in-law, Pamela Kent. So the first question I'm going to ask, since we're talking about immigration, the first one is, why do you care so much about this issue?
Okay, I care about this issue because I am for the legal coming in of people to the country, but I'm not necessarily in favor of the current policy of just letting everybody come in with no way to know where they're going or if they really truly qualify. And I do agree that there needs to be some kind of comprehensive immigration policy that everybody can live with.
Okay, so that was the first one. And do you have any life experiences that made you passionate about the issue, like working wise or anything like that, or have you encountered anybody that may have
Well,
been?
I actually am a retired state employee for the Department of Family and Children Services. I did Medicaid eligibility for 30 plus years, and a lot of times I had to certify Medicaid for illegal aliens who came to this country, specifically who had a baby. Sometimes also illegal aliens who came in and they weren't eligible for any kind of Medicaid coverage except the special coverage when they were in the hospital. And so I had some knowledge of that. Plus, I had to say, too, my children were in the Army in El Paso, Texas. I knew that was an issue out there because they were on a town where they were close to a border, and there was a lot of problems with illegal immigration. So I've been interested in this subject for a good while.
Okay, is there any in the current policies that are going on right now with immigration? Do you have any discomforts? Do you have any uncertainties that you're willing to share about?
Yes, I have to say that I supported the former administration in having a wall to keep people out. I think that he was on the right track to stopping just the continual flow of illegal aliens, particularly children that were coming without any kind of adult supervision, and that could entail two teenagers. I still consider them to be children, but I think that this current policy of reversing what had formerly been the policy has created a big crisis at all the borders from California to Texas. And the fact now that people are coming in, they are being taken to Greyhound buses. They're not being tested for COVID with all the problems that we're having with COVID, and we're then releasing them into the country, and we have nowhere to know where they're going. So that's a big concern because those things I've seen in my job. I've seen where those things are big parts of a community's problem. How do we help these people who come here and yet they have no way to pay for medical bills, when they have babies or children are sick or somebody gets hurt on a job?
Okay, and then do you have per se with this administration and also future administrations, do you have any goals that you would, if you could talk to any type of presidential candidate or current president, if you had any goals to tell them, what would you tell them about regarding this issue?
Well, I think we need to have bipartisan. In other words, I think we need to have Democrats and Republicans together coming on a policy that everybody can live with, and then the government supporting the communities where these folks are going to be coming into. It's not fair for the federal government to say to people, come, and I'm not saying that he actually has said that, but President Biden's been pretty clear that he welcomes people who want to come. But we can't expect that El Paso and Brownsville and the border cities in Arizona and California are going to be financially and otherwise equipped to handle the number of people who are coming. And I think that the federal government has really kind of put the burden on these towns on the border And the people who are living there, who are American citizens, they don't have any say-so in this. And I don't think that's right either. I think they ought to be allowed to either vote or say what they think about how these people should be treated. I think we should treat everybody humanely. I don't think people ought to be put in cages. I don't think people ought to have to sleep out in the open. But I do think that there needs to be some kind of bipartisan agreement in our country. And then I think we need to do as we had done before, where we had an agreement with Mexico and some of the other places in Central America to stop people from coming. It's not fair to put all of this back on the people in Mexico of how, are these people going to stay until they get a hearing?
Okay. And just regarding this issue, and not just currently right now, over the years, or last 10, 20 years, did your political affiliation change or stay the same regarding this issue? Did it make you want to, you don't have to say your political affiliation, but did particular candidates or so make you want to change your political affiliation because of this issue, or if they're not for it or
no,
against
because
it?
I don't really think that there is any, I don't think anybody's had any policy. I think that people have not really wanted to come together and to pass a bill for immigration reform. I think that whoever is in power at the time, they just do what they think. And I don't think that really is the right way to go. I think everybody needs to be invested in this. I think everybody needs to have a say in how this is going to be done, so that it won't be a political thing that changes when the president changes. It'll be, this is what we do, this is what our policy is, and this will be something that we will continue to do regardless of who's in power in the representative part or who's in power as the president.
And do you also agree that, like, sometimes when the presidents, they're talking about immigration or so, do you think it's ultimately dividing us as a nation? Because I know there's people that are against it, there's people that are for it, and not everybody's on the same page when it comes to immigration.
I think yes, and I think that the difference too, some of the division is not only politically, but if you live in Detroit, Michigan, that's not a real big issue for you, or if you live in Nashville, Tennessee, you're not living in a border town. You're not an American citizen who is living where these people are coming in, per se, where it is very personal to people who actually live on the border of the United States of America, whether you live in California, whether you live in Texas, whether you live even in New York State or any of these other places that border Canada. I don't think people in the interior of the United States, they don't really think about it very much because it doesn't really affect them. But if you live in the South, if you live in the Northeast, if you live in the Southwest, you're gonna see more people who care about this issue. So I don't know that it really divides people per se, as much as it's more personal to people who are having their lives, interrupted by it.
Okay, so basically people that are more so that live closer to the things that are going on with immigration versus people.
It's more of an issue for them than it is for somebody who doesn't live close to a border.
And also,
or who doesn't have, for instance, in Georgia, we have a lot of agriculture where people are, pretty much imported to pick peaches and to pick farm crops and things like that, and they're here. They may not even be here legally, but employers are finding that they can't find people to harvest these crops, and so they bring in these illegal aliens, and then you have a strain on the towns and cities that these folks are brought into, because they don't really have any rights, but yet they still have the same problems that everybody else does. They still get sick. They still have to have a place to live. They still have to go to school. So I think that it does really impact a lot of the economy, and it costs American citizens, and it's unfair to people who have immigrated to this country legally and who are waiting, to have their hearing, or they're waiting to become citizens, and yet, we're going to try to, invite people to come and tell them to come on, and then we don't really have a plan in play about, well, how are we going to treat these folks? It just seems like sometimes we could do a little bit better about trying to help the ones that are coming. I can understand that people feel like their life would be so much better living in the United States of America than where they're living in Central America and Mexico and South America and anywhere else.
Okay. And also, do you think there's something that maybe the American people can do to maybe work together to maybe focus more on this issue, regardless of maybe regardless of the place that they're living in? Do you think there's something that we can all do to work together on the issue, or?
I think that first of all, we can make calls to our Congress people. We can even make calls to our local people on councils or commissions or whatever, and voice what we think. People serve at our pleasure. We vote them in, we vote them out. So if we start there and we try to put the right people, not people that are say, by God, it's my way or the highway, but people who are seriously interested in having a conversation about how can we fix this. I think that's the first step. I think we need to listen to people who have immigrated to this country, and ask them, what were some things that you didn't like, in your process. And I think we have to be pretty firm that we're going to come up with a policy, but you just can't tell people, oh, hey, when I'm president, we're going to have open borders. That's not the will of the people, and I think that our officials, both Republicans and Democrats, have become so polarized that they're not listening to what the majority of the people of the United States of America might want.
Okay. And then one last question. Would you feel like, is there a particular political argument or support that you felt was, whether you heard it on the news or you heard it from someone else, or friend, family, or maybe just a local politician, that you felt was effective, or that encourage you about immigration? Because I know you don't live do you think that the area you live in has a lot of immigration issues as well, and have you heard any arguments that you support or anything like that locally?
I do think that I do live in an area where it is very agricultural, and I think that our particular districts in Georgia have worked really hard to try to make it better for illegals who do come. We have passed, we're not saying that people can't go to the hospital anymore. We have made a way for somebody who's an illegal not to be fearful to not get medical treatment. They can go to the hospital and they can get some help on the bill. There are all kinds of grants, that people have used before to pay for indigent care is what they call it. But a lot of the indigent care now is for people who are illegal aliens who don't have any access to health insurance. And, we're not punishing people per se, but then on the other hand, you cannot keep making policies that give people false hope about coming in here. And you can't just deplete your resources. I know if I lived in Brownsville, Texas right now, I would be very angry that they are letting people come in, putting them on a Greyhound bus, and not even testing them for COVID. And yet and we're trying to get a handle on COVID and be able to go back to our former way of living, and we can't do that because now as we're getting a handle on vaccine, you're allowing thousands of people to come in that are sick, and they don't even know they're sick, and they're exposing more people. So I think that we have got to come together and formulate a policy that doesn't that is going to stand up to any other president that comes in. I mean, this is the way we'll handle immigration, regardless of if Biden continues to be president or if somebody else comes in 4 years and they're president. This is the way we handle illegal immigration, and I think that can be worked out. But I think it does take people talking to each other, and there needs to be a little compromise on everybody's part in order to formulate a policy.
Okay, and then this will be the last question. So when people started coming over to America, immigration probably in early 1900s or so, do you think the values have changed over the years about regarding immigration? Because it was a lot different when people first started coming over here till now. Do you think it's...
Oh, certainly. You know, most of the people that immigrated to this country were from Europe, from Africa, somewhat maybe from Scandinavia, and and there was no immigration policy. Everybody came in, everybody had the same opportunity as everybody else. But now we see that immigration is coming from a different place, you know, and we're seeing primarily people coming from Central and South America. But I would submit to you too that a lot of, 9/11 changed a lot of the way people think about immigration. We had people that we had let come into this country to go to school, to do other things, and they took advantage of that, and then they then inflicted a big wound on the United States, when they flew planes into buildings and all of that. So now I think people are real leery of that. People are real leery of people coming in because nobody wants another 9/11. So I think ever since that's happened, you've had a big fight about how to handle immigration. And now, I think that we can still offer people political asylum, from being harmed in their own country. But I just don't think that it's the same now as it was in the early 18 and 1900s. Now it's a little bit more difficult because the population in the United States of America has grown so much. And there's just not enough room for everybody to be able to freely come now. There's still opportunity for people, but we have to make the opportunity fair for the folks who are born and live in this country too.
Okay. So we are now just concluding our oral history interview. Thank you.